Well, what's up, guys? Again, my name is Kanan. I am from Northeast Ohio. I'm on staff at a church out there, working in student ministry. Well, first, can we give it up for worship real quick? Give it up for the worship team. Yeah, come on. Last night was amazing. That was just incredible. Thank you guys for leading the way for us entering into His presence. So, like I said, I'm from a church called Christ Community Chapel in Hudson, Ohio. And I've been in ministry for about a year and a half now. And like I said during the interview, I truly can't imagine doing anything else. And when Spencer first asked me to be here, it no hesitation. Spencer's one of those guys that I admire a lot too. There's so many things about Spencer that I could share, and he's such a great dude, and he cares a lot about you guys. He prays for you often, and he's such a great leader. And it's fun to be here. Come meet you guys. Come see what the Lord is doing here in Northeast Ohio. Northeast Ohio. That's crazy. Here in Greenwood, Indiana. Man, I'm just so used to saying that it's like. Well, awesome. So, hey, this weekend, we're talking about this idea of the race, running the race. And Allison last night, if you were here, if you weren't here, in short, she talked about what the race is that we are running. And in summary, what she said is that we are created and designed for relationship. Very simply, we are created and designed for relationship with God. And so tonight we're going to talk about the next step. Once we understand what race we are running, we got to understand why we're running it. We got to understand what the prize is that we're chasing, what is our goal in this mission. And this is an essential aspect to our walk with Jesus, because if we don't understand the prize, if we don't understand what it is we're chasing after, then there's no way to have motivation, to have drive to pursue this race and to finish the race. So one thing you should know about me is I absolutely love stories. Like I said, my dad's a pastor, my uncle's a pastor, so I grew up hearing so many stories about their lives, both in ministry, out of ministry, with sports, and I just love them. I love them. So tonight, I'm going to weave in a lot of stories in and out of the scripture and in and out of this teaching to help you understand the idea that we need to be chasing a heavenly prize. We need to be chasing a prize that's not here on this earth, but is in heaven. And so with that said, I figured it's timely, with it being the Olympics, to start out with a story about the Olympics. How many of you guys have been tuning into the Olympics? Yeah? Oh, that's actually a decent bit of you guys. Truth be told, I have not as much. I've watched more of the Olympics in the past 3 hours than I have for however long they've been going. But come back with me to the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City. And there's a man, I want to tell his story, a man by the name of John Stephen Ekwari. Does that name ring a bell to anybody in this room? All right, I didn't think it would. Well, John Stephen Ekwari, he represented Tanzania in the marathon. So, John, as he's training in Tanzania, which has an elevation of about 2,500 feet above sea level. So, okay, it's not too bad. However, when he got to Mexico City, the elevation there is over 7,000 feet above sea level. So almost a 5,000 foot difference from where he was training to where he was actually competing. And so if any of you have been to Colorado and you've tried to go for a run or try to exercise or do something outside, you realize that elevation matters, right? It changes. Your lungs get heavy quickly. You get tired quicker. You're out of breath for no reason. You're like, what the heck is happening? But it's because that elevation change is so drastic. And even for an Olympic marathon runner, it got the best of him. So John's running this race. He's running this marathon, and first few miles, I'm sure he was crushing. He was feeling good. And then sure enough, as the miles come along and mile 8, 9, 10 come along, he starts to cramp. And if you've had a cramp when you're running before, it's very hard to focus on actually running. You're more concerned about this cramp. You're trying to figure out, man, how do I stop this cramp? And so you're less worried about running. And sure enough, I don't know if you've watched the marathon before or any sort of race, like running competition in the Olympics, but they're super close together. So sure enough, he's cramping. He's not really worried about running, and then he gets hit and bumped, and he starts fumbling around. And sure enough, in mile 12, He's running this race. He starts cramping. He gets hit, maybe elbowed, bumped. Sure enough, in mile 12, he gets hit. He falls down. He hurts his shoulder, ends up dislocating his knee. Dislocating his knee in the Olympics, and he wasn't even halfway through. And so tonight, the text we're going to be in is 1 Corinthians 9, 24 through 27. So go ahead and get there. And while you get there, I just want to give a little bit of background. A little bit of background on this text before we get into the teaching. It's one of the things I love to do, help us provide a little bit of context. Who's writing this to us? Who are they writing to? What is the point behind this message so that we can figure out what it means for our lives today? And so while you're getting there, 1 Corinthians was written by a guy named Paul. And if you don't know who Paul was, he was a pillar of the early church. A pillar. However, that wasn't always the case. Before he became Paul, his name was Saul, and he actually sought out to persecute Christians. He wanted to stop the flow of Christianity, and that was his sole goal in life until he had a radical encounter with God, where God revealed himself to Saul in a pretty profound way. And from that point forward, he became a leader in the early church. And so Paul is the one who's writing this, and he's writing it to the church in Corinth, which, to be honest, it sounds like the world we're living in today. He was writing to a church in Corinth who was struggling with an environment of corruption and sin and people who were just living for the world. Living for the world. And so I'm going to go ahead and read 1 Corinthians 9, 24 through 27 for us. It'll be on the screen, or you can access it. If you have a physical Bible with you, I'm always pro physical Bible. Have a Bible in hand with you. Take it with you wherever you go. All right, 1 Corinthians 9, 24 starts like this. It says, "Don't you realize that in a race, everyone runs, but only one person gets the prize? So run to win. All athletes are disciplined in their training. They do it to win a prize that will fade away, but we do it for an eternal prize. So I run with purpose in every step. I am not just shadow boxing. I discipline my body like an athlete, training it to do what it should. Otherwise, I fear that after preaching to others, I myself might be disqualified." And so to outline our time together tonight, I've got 3 points, very simple, very easy to remember. First is the preparation. Second is the pain. And thirdly is the prize. The preparation, the pain, and the prize. So firstly, the preparation. So let's take a look at verse 24 one more time. Verse 24, it says this, "Don't you realize that in a race, everyone runs, but only one person gets the prize, so run to win." So what Paul's saying here is essentially he's saying before we even start this race, we got to identify what's the goal, what's the mission, what is the prize that we are chasing after. And so as you guys heard in the interview, a little bit of background about me. I played sports. All my brothers, I got 3 older brothers, they all played sports growing up. Went on to play basketball at Indiana Wesleyan University, a couple years overseas afterwards. And no matter if it was in middle school, in high school, in college, playing professionally overseas, every single preseason started the exact same. It was an absolute grind. Right? You got the 2-day workouts. You've got long days in the weight room. You're putting up a lot of shots. And throughout that preseason, you always had to have the prize in mind. You always had to have the prize in mind because that was the motivator. That was the driver for you to be actually working hard. You had to have a purpose behind it. And so that was the motivator for the long days in the gym, for the junkyard workouts when I was in college, for the 2-a-day practices. You had to. You had to keep the prize in mind because what else would you be working for? And this makes me think of a story. You might have just heard me reference junkyard workouts. So at Indiana Wesleyan University, junkyard workouts have become a staple in the men's basketball program. And so it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a Friday morning. You're getting up at 5 a.m., you're flipping some tires, you're doing battle ropes, you're bear crawling across the football field, you're doing stairs, you're doing all the tough stuff on a Friday morning. And so come with me. This is my going into my senior year. We are on campus for the month of June, and by this point, Junkyard workouts, I loved them. They were challenging, but by that point, I'd done enough of them to figure out, how to get through them, how to manage my energy and get through them, because I knew what to expect. However, we had some new guys on the team, and not everybody had done a junkyard workout before. We had some freshmen, we had some transfers, and so we're heading into our first junkyard of that year. And so junkyard, you're paired up with a teammate or two, and you're going through all these stations. And one of the things they encouraged us with is to think outside of yourself. So during those junkyard workouts, you're encouraging a brother, you're encouraging a teammate. And so that was it. Guys are chirping at each other and saying, firing each other up. But one of the things, too, is whenever a teammate's struggling, they're hurting pretty bad, everybody makes some noise for them, right? You try to encourage your brother who's hurting. And so midway through this workout, I started hearing, this name being thrown out. I was like, what the heck? That's super interesting. Anyways, the name I kept hearing a name. Sure enough, it's my time to go and run the stairs. Go and run the stairs. And so I get in position to go run the stairs with my group. We're getting fired up, and I go and I look in front of the first stair, in front of the very first step. There's this nasty, green, yellowy, mucky puke. And I'm like, what in the world? This is our first junkyard of the season. No, who's already throwing up? And that's when I found out that it was Spencer Piercefield. That is the one that yacked everywhere on the very first junkyard that we ever did. I don't know if I believe that. Better there than on the court, which I've heard has happened too. But the reason I love that story is because, one, Spencer threw up, and it's hilarious. But two, because Spencer, in that moment, he didn't just disqualify himself. He didn't just say, hey, I'm out. That was tough. I'm gone. And if you know the same Spencer I know, which I'm sure you do, that dude busts his butt, and nothing will really keep him down. So he kept going because he had this prize in mind. One, yeah, he wanted to win a national championship with our team, but also he wanted to be the best player, the best influencer, the best teammate that he could be. And so he kept fighting. He had the prize in mind. He kept himself motivated by that prize. And I think this is just a glimpse for us. If we were to look at our spiritual lives, if we were to look at our walks with Jesus, I think it highlights the idea of spiritual formation, right? Every day you have an opportunity to either take a step towards the prize or a step away from the prize. And it's this idea that we're either taking one step towards Jesus or one step further away from Jesus every single day. Students, life is not neutral. You don't just wake up one day and you just stay put. You're either moving one step closer to Jesus or one step further away. And so you need to understand that there are no neutral moments. There are no neutral moments. And Paul says in the text that we need to run to win, because I think Paul understood that there are no neutral moments. But if we were to tie this back into our junkyard workouts, one of the things our coach would do is during that workout, he'd encourage us by referencing other teams in our conference. It's 5 a.m. and we're out there busting our butt. And he'd say, hey, St. Francis ain't working right now. Bethel ain't working right now. And that would fire us up. And then he'd say something like, hey, championships, this is where championships are won. In June and September, championships are won here, not in March, but here, because Coach Tonigal understood that there are no neutral moments. That either one day we are going to lose our edge as a team or we are going to gain our edge as a team. We're going to be strengthened as a team or we're going to let another team jump ahead of us. And recently the senior pastor at our church said this line. He said, who you are in the little moments is who you are in the big moments. Who you are in the little moments is who you will be in the big moments. And when he said that, it hit me because I had recently listened to this podcast where this guy had referenced something that I just had not considered before. And it's this idea that Jesus' life, the life of Jesus that we know, it's only 10% of his life. It's in the other 90% of his life that he prepared, that he spent time preparing himself for that 10%. And so I want to ask you, what does your 90% look like right now? How are you preparing? How are you preparing to chase after the prize? And so as we consider how to prepare, we gotta realize that there's probably going to be some pain involved. And that's my second point, is the pain. And we're going to jump down to verse 26 and 27 here. 26 and 27, and it says this. It says, "So I run with purpose in every step. I am not just shadowboxing. I discipline my body like an athlete, training it to do what it should. Otherwise, I fear that after preaching to others, I myself might be disqualified." What he's saying here is you're in the ring at all times. You're in the ring at all times because life is not neutral. And just like Allison, I'm a little bit of a nerd, and I was also looking up some Greek words, because sometimes they help you figure out what the heck something means. And so I looked up the Greek word for discipline, and it actually, the translation of it means to strike under the eye or to give a black eye. And I thought that's really fascinating, actually, that it's that intense, to give your own self a black eye. And I think Paul used that language because he noticed that it matters. It matters how we discipline ourselves. Come with me here. To me, this comes to mind, like, say if any of you are in this position or have a friend that, they go and watch a movie or watch a clip or a reel or something, and then all of a sudden they decide to become that thing for like 2 weeks. They get super fired up. Say like this idea of boxing. They go and watch Rocky, and then they get fired up. They go to the gym for like 2 weeks. They buy boxing gloves. They go start taking lessons, and then 2 weeks later, you're like, "Hey, how's it going?" And they're like, "What do you mean? Like, I'm not doing that anymore." I think we've probably all been there at some point in life. You get super excited about an idea, but I think what Paul is saying here in this idea of the race is that it needs to be long term. That discipline is long term, and to highlight this idea, the first person that came to mind was another Olympic athlete, very timely, was a guy by the name of Michael Phelps. You guys know who Michael Phelps is? If you don't know who he is the most successful Olympic athlete of all time. He's won 28 medals, and in 2008, he made his mark by winning 8 gold medals in swimming. Remarkable. But do you think Michael Phelps woke up one day and said, "All right, I'm gonna hit the pool for a couple weeks, and then I'm gonna become the greatest Olympic athlete of all time"? No, you'd be a lunatic if that's what you thought. Michael Phelps dedicated almost 30 hours a week to training, and he ate almost 8,000 to 10,000 calories every single day to fuel his body for training. And he was quoted at one point saying, "If you want to be the best, you have to do things that other people aren't willing to do." And at his peak, he could not remember the last day that he had not trained. And so Michael realized that discipline is not easy or fun, but he knew that it was worth it because he knew what his prize was. He knew what he was preparing for. He anticipated the pain. He expected the pain because he knew that it is worth it. And in my life, the seasons, the moments where I've challenged myself in discipline are the seasons that have been the most fruitful. They've been the most painful, but they have been the most fruitful. And so I think over the past year, a couple things that come to mind. There's 2 things that come to mind. One, from an earthly standpoint, I trained for a marathon last year, and dang it, that was some discipline that caused some pain. A lot of nights rolling out, using the massage gun and trying to get my body back healthy. I'm not like I used to be. I get a little sore every now and then. So that was a way that I, over months and months of training. But then I was also recently from a spiritual side of things, I was recently invited into a fast, a 24-hour fast from food, which is, to be honest, something that I haven't done a whole lot of. And in that fast, I was convicted. I realized that in the pain, the Lord revealed himself in a way that I just hadn't experienced in a long time. And so I would challenge you to think through, how can you discipline yourself now so that you are better in line to pursue that prize. And so lastly here, what he says is, if we look at verse 27, he says, "Otherwise, I fear that after preaching to others, I myself might be disqualified." And what he's saying is that you need to walk the walk. And if each of you in this room thought, "Hey, am I walking a walk right now that my friends can follow?" Take inventory of your heart. Am I walking a walk that my friends can follow? Because honestly, if your friends see you give up on discipline because it's too hard, it's too challenging, my assumption is that they'll give up too. And so we need to set the tone. We need to be the people that endure the pain of discipline because we know that there's a prize that is worth it. Because the prize that we are in pursuit of, the prize that we need to chase after, is the only one that really matters. And that's my final point tonight, is the prize. And so let's look at the last verse here, verse 25. Verse 25, it says this. It says, all athletes are disciplined in their training. They do it to win a prize that will fade away, but we do it for an eternal prize. An eternal prize. This will be the last story I share of the night. So this is another story from Indiana Wesleyan. This is my sophomore year. We're coming off a year. We made it to the Final Four, but we had really won a national championship that year. So we're heading into this year. We got a few transfers, and we were on paper looking to be one of the best teams in the country. We were talented. We were hard workers. We had some great leaders. Yet as the season unfolded, by about Christmas time, we were 12-5, which for our program was a little bit of an off year, and we were coming off a 3-game losing streak, which was not common. And so we're sitting there, and as a team, some of our leaders are like, I think we heard from Coach, like they could be thinking this is a rebuild year, like who knows? And in that moment, my coach had a decision to make. Either he could have given up on us and said, hey, I don't think they'll win it all this year. Might as well just toss in the towel now. Or he could have done what he actually did. And that next week was the worst pain, the longest practices, the hardest workouts that I've ever had in my entire life. It was brutal. I mean, we were doing swim workouts. I'm like, I can barely swim a lap down and back, and we're just doing lap after lap after lap, and we're running down and back in the gym, and we're doing 2 days. This is over Christmas break, so we got nothing else to do. So that was more fuel for our coach. And so we had this week of practices. And you know what happened after that? I don't know the exact numbers, but we won something of like 20 of 21 games, and we went on to win the national championship that year. And in that moment, right, that's a peak moment for any athlete, winning a national championship. But I'm here to tell you tonight that we won that national championship. Later that night, I'm like, all right, what else? What else? Because it didn't fulfill. It did not fulfill in the way that I thought it was. And truth be told, I haven't even looked at the ring. I haven't worn the ring in years. It's back in my parents' house. It just sits there collecting dust. But since then, I have learned what the real prize is. And so I'm reading my word. I'm in the Bible every single day, not because I feel like I have to earn something, but because I actually know that it's going to give me life. I know that it's going to satisfy me. Because students, the prize, it's not championships. It's not applause. It's not popularity. It's not to be known. It's not to be in this group or that group. The prize is Jesus alone and Jesus himself. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. It's Jesus. And I know for most of you in this room that is not a foreign concept. I know you've heard that over and over again. Trust me, I'm a pastor's kid. I've heard it for 28 years. I've heard it my entire life that Jesus is the prize, but I'm here tonight to remind you that that should be the one thing that you pursue, that nothing else that you chase in this life will pursue you the way, will fulfill you the way that you think it will. And the beautiful thing about this, the coolest part about this, is when you fully surrender your life to Jesus, you allow him to become your prize, is that he begins to use you and use you and change you so that you can go and impact your friends, your family, your teammates, the people you're in band with, the people you're in choir with, because that's who he is. He wants to use us to be vessels of his grace. And then when we make him our prize, one day, whether it's tonight, 10 years from now, 50 years from now, when we're entering the gates of heaven, one day we will hear, well done, good and faithful servant. Good and faithful servant. And I just want to remind you of this beautiful text. This beautiful text that Allison hit on last night in 2 Corinthians. In 2 Corinthians 4, it says this. It says this. It says, this is why we never give up. Though our bodies are dying, our spirits are being renewed every day. For our present troubles are small and won't last very long, yet they produce for us a glory that vastly outweighs them and will last forever. If you were in my breakout this morning, I talked about this idea that, hey, I want you to be ambitious, chase goals, dream big, do all of those things, but just remember, hold those things lightly, because those prizes fade. Those prizes fade, and the reality for me up here today, once upon a time, I played some college basketball. I played basketball overseas. However, 99.999% of people I meet for the first time today have absolutely no clue that I won a national championship in college, or that I, let alone, played basketball, just the game. They don't know that. And so imagine me, right? If basketball was the one thing I was chasing after, was the prize that I was fully committed to, fully invested in, imagine how lost I would be if I still believe that today. Right? If I met someone for the first time and shook their hand and they had no clue that I played basketball, they didn't ask me about basketball, I would be completely lost. I'd be hurt, I'd be sad 24/7. And I'm thankful that the Lord rewired my heart and realigned my values when I was overseas, and he replaced this idea that I was chasing the wrong thing. He replaced it with this idea of, okay, if you don't have basketball, you're okay. You're okay because I have something for you that will last forever. And so I started tonight by sharing the story of this Olympic marathon runner. And how I left the story is that in mile 12, he got hit, he got bumped down, and he dislocated his knee. And so in that moment, John had two decisions. He had one choice to make. He could either just disqualify himself, thinking, hey, I got another 14 miles. I don't really think it's worth it. Maybe we'll get him 4 years from now. Or he could have disciplined himself, gotten up, and kept running the race. And I think you know where this is going. So in that moment, John gets up. He gets up, dislocated knee, puts some bandages around it, and decides in that moment he didn't care how long it was going to take. He didn't care if it was going to take him another hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. He was determined to finish the race, to get up and chase after the prize that he was was seeking. And so John, he finds his way step after step and ends up completing that marathon with a dislocated knee. He completed it almost an hour after the first runner finished. And he's quoted afterwards saying this. He says, "My country did not send me 5,000 miles to start the race. My country sent me 5,000 miles to finish the race." And I think John's story is a beautiful illustration for our lives as followers of Jesus. You know, during the race of life, whether you grew up knowing Jesus or whether you met Jesus yesterday, right? During that time where we understand who Jesus is, we start living ambitiously. We start sharing Jesus with others. We start living on fire for the Lord. And then sure enough, something happens in life. Something happens in your family. You lose that job. You lose that relationship. You get hit by life. Maybe you get a sickness. Maybe you get an illness. And then all of a sudden we get hit and we start questioning, like, Lord, is this prize really worth it? Should I discipline myself? And we begin to think, I don't know if this is actually worth it. Yet time and time again, the grace of Jesus is what propels us forward. The grace of Jesus is what makes us in that moment decide, hey, I might be hurting right now. I might not have all the answers. I might not know how I'm going to get through this, but the grace of Jesus, time and time again in my life, and I'm sure in your life, is that driver, that motivator to make you realize that this prize is worth it. Even we don't know what the outcome is going to be. Students, hear me. I'm up here sharing, but I've gotten it wrong so many times. So many times, way too many times. And on this earth, I've chased almost everything there is to chase. I've chased relationships. I've chased fame. I've chased money. I've chased this idea of being known, of being famous, of making a name for myself. And I can tell you time and time again, it has never satisfied. And it has led me down places where I have never thought I would be. And I want you to understand, like I said, far before I did, that there's only one prize, worth committing your entire life to. You see, the prize Paul talks about, it far outweighs any prize that we could attain on this earth. And so maybe you're in this room right now and you're chasing an actual prize. Maybe you're an athlete, you're chasing a medal, you're chasing a trophy, you're chasing a championship. Or maybe you're in this room and you're thinking, no, I'm not chasing any of that. I'm chasing a relationship. I'm chasing that scholarship. I'm chasing that approval from this friend group. I'm chasing image. Who knows? And I feel like Allison mentioned it last night. I feel like I'm simply here. The reason that I'm here, the reason Spencer reached out is just to remind you. Just to remind you that the thing that you think will satisfy you, time and time again, it will not. It will not satisfy in the way that you think it will. And if I'm going to be real, I think some of you, because I was in this position, some of you in this room are exhausted. Because the thing you've been chasing, the prize you've been chasing, it can't love you back unconditionally. It can't do it. It's too volatile. It's too high, and then someday it's too low. It can't love you back unconditionally. And it makes me think of, yesterday we sang the song, "What a God." And those words, as I was singing it again today, and I was listening to it, the words, I just hope that you don't look at worship as just another song, but you look at the truth in each song. And it says this, it says, "Your love has changed my life, forever satisfied. You are my everything." And man, I started getting emotional as I was listening to it today, because I realized, man, how lost I was for years and years of my life, chasing the wrong thing, putting my identity, my value in this prize that just was gonna fade away. And so if you're in this room tonight and Jesus is still a new concept to you and you're still figuring out your relationship with him, man, I hope you, after this weekend, you can understand that there's a prize for you, whether you knew it or not, that will never leave you, never leave your side. And that is Jesus. That is the love of Jesus and the grace of Jesus. And I believe you're here for a purpose. But if you're in this room and you've called yourself a follower of Jesus for year after year after year, I just want to challenge you. I want to challenge you, and I just want to remind you that though we cannot physically see our prize, trust me, I know, it's hard. It's worth it. It's worth it. So be around people who are going to encourage you to keep chasing that prize. And so whether it's tonight, maybe it's tomorrow, maybe it's after this weekend has gone, and coming off of a weekend like this, it's easy to kind of be on a high and then it falls off. Maybe 2 months from now, I just want to encourage you, don't give up. Don't give up. Keep running the race inch by inch, step by step. Just like John Stephen Akwari did back in 1968 on a dislocated knee. Keep running the race inch by inch, step by step, and realize that either one day you are moving closer to Jesus or one step further away. So, hey, I don't care if it's a centimeter at a time. Some seasons are like that. Take a little movement forward towards Jesus. Because the prize is worth it. The prize of knowing him and being known by him is a beautiful thing, and it is worth it. So in a moment, you guys are going to have the opportunity to respond. And as I was thinking through this, man, I think there is power in vulnerability. I think there's power in testimony. And so what's going to happen is there'll be some instructions on the screen, but what earthly prize is currently captivating your mind and heart and withholding you from an all-out pursuit of Jesus? And the challenging part about this is you're the only one that knows your heart. And for me, it took years and years of my life to get to the point where I was ready to share what was actually on my heart, what I was actually pursuing. And I just challenge you tonight. Do it. Do it. It's the Lord can offer freedom. The Lord wants to lift your burden of carrying that and to transform your heart and transform your mind. And so after you share that with a couple of people around you, I would encourage you to pray for one another out loud. Prayers can be an intimidating thing, especially if you're doing it for the first time with friends. And again, just a challenge and an encouragement to you. Prayer is relationship. Prayer doesn't have to look a certain way. Be bold. right? If you've accepted Jesus, you know the Holy Spirit is with you and in you and will give you the words to say. So I challenge each one of you to pray over one another out loud, because I think there is true power in it. And then lastly, if you feel led, if you feel like you need to, go share it with a leader. The leaders are in this room, are in your lives because they care about you, because they want to help you in your pursuit of Jesus. And so I'm going to pray, and then we're going to go ahead and enter into that time together before we close. So let me pray for us. Heavenly Father, God, just thank you for your grace. Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for, Father, just another day that we get to be here together and bring you the glory. Father, may it not be about us or our agenda, but simply your agenda. And so, God, as we continue to run this race of life, God, even when we're beaten down, we're bruised, we're going through a hard season, Lord, I pray that each one in this room would remember and would just be reminded, Father. They would be reminded that your presence is all we need, that you are the prize, that we don't need to put it on seeking attention from others. We don't need to put it on a relationship, a trophy, an award, Father, but we just need to set our eyes on you and you alone, because you are the one that satisfies. You are the only one that we need. And so, God, I just pray that these students would have a willing heart tonight to be vulnerable with one another, all in pursuit of more intimacy with you. Because, God, I know it's hard. I know it's challenging to think through that. But, God, that you would just impart your spirit into this room. And, Father, that they would know that you are with them, that you care for them deeply and you love them deeply more than anything on this earth. And that you are the only one that can love them unconditionally. So, God, thank you for this time. Thank you for this weekend. Father, may you just be with us in every moment. We love you. It's in your name we pray. Amen.